All right, we are broadcasting. How you doing, folks? Chuck Holton here. Hope you're having a good weekend. I'll try to keep this fairly short. We probably go half an hour, maybe something like that, depending on how many questions we get. But we're going to talk about the sort of perfect storm that's brewing over South Texas. Now, right now, at the moment, we have a federal government which is threatening the state government. So the state government of Texas has declared an invasion along its southern border, and they are acting accordingly by sending the National Guard out there, giving them arrest authority so that they can arrest these illegal aliens who are coming across the border. We'll talk a little bit about, there's a lot of sort of ridiculousness going on here, but let's just set the stage first. So you have the government of Texas under Greg Abbott that are blocking certain areas of Eagle Pass, which is a very common route for the migrants and the aliens to come across. And they're put up barbed wire, concertina wire, razor wire to keep the aliens out. The federal government is saying, you can't do that. We have jurisdiction over that, and you're not allowed to do that, and so you have to take it down. Texas is saying, no, we're not going to take it down. We're going to leave it up, and we're going to put more up. And they're, like I say, sending the National Guard from Texas down there. And WKS says, doesn't an invasion have to include weapons fired? Not necessarily. This is, and we can talk about this, that the strategy here is obviously if Guatemala decided to invade the United States with its military, they would lose in spectacular fashion very quickly. Not to mention the fact that they don't have an expeditionary military to begin with, so they wouldn't be able to even transport their troops up here. But if they came in with weapons, we would fight them and they would lose. But instead they come in with women and children, and they take advantage of our good nature. They take advantage of our hospitality, and they can invade that way. And just simply the fact that they aren't carrying weapons doesn't really matter. The fact that they're coming in to take illegally, they're entering illegally to take by illegal means what does not belong to them, would classify it as an invasion. At least it does under Texas Constitution. And let's talk about the cost here of this. There's an article that I put up on chuckholton.com, I think yesterday, from General Flynn, where he talks about the staggering cost of this open border along our southern border. Joe Biden opened the border the first day of after his inauguration. I was down there on the border when it happened and recorded them forcing the workers to stop work on the wall. And even though they had already been paid, the contract had already been paid for, so it wasn't saving the government any money for them to stop. It actually was costing them money because the wall wasn't being built. They still had to pay the contractors for building it, and they left all that stuff laying around out in the desert to just rust away. And so it created, rather than a seamless wall, a seamless fence that would keep out the majority of the migrants, would serve as a deterrent to that illegal migration. It created a bunch of funnels because now that all those migrants are coming to the open areas where they didn't finish the wall. And you can imagine the poor ranchers who live in areas where the wall wasn't finished, what they're facing as these just absolutely massive waves of migration come through their ranch that would have been spread out more if it hadn't been for the wall. And if the wall had been finished, they wouldn't have come at all, most likely. But it's yeah, I mean, it is it's a huge border, but they estimate that the cost annually, this is every year, the cost to the U.S. government because of the illegal aliens who have crossed into our country under the Biden administration will top $450 billion. $450 billion every year. That is in increased healthcare costs, increase in education costs, increase in policing, because there have been, of the 3.8 million people who have come across the border and turned themselves in since Biden got elected, many of those people have gone on to commit crimes. He shows here in his, let's see, I'm trying to find it. I'm looking at this article. Something like over 500,000 additional crimes that have been committed. Let's see. An estimated 2.2 million illegal aliens live in Texas alone at a total cost of over $13 billion per year to Texas taxpayers. Obviously, that is unsustainable. At the federal, state, and local levels, taxpayers shell out approximately $182 billion to cover costs incurred from the presence of more than 15.5 million illegal aliens. It's far more than that, actually. We're much closer to 30 million illegal aliens in the United States now because of all the gotaways. And the gotaways are people that we know came across, but we didn't catch them. And the other group of people are people that came across and we didn't even see them. We don't have any idea that they came across. But the estimates are that it's closer to 30 million now that live in the United States. That's about 10% of our population. That amounts to a cost burden of approximately $8,776 per illegal alien or child. Okay. The burden of illegal immigration on U.S. taxpayers is crippling at a gross cost per taxpayer in the United States of over $1,150 per year. According to the Texas Department of Public Safety, this is just in Texas. Between 2011 and 2023, 297,000 illegal aliens were charged with more than 509,000 criminal offenses. That's just in Texas, okay? Just in Texas, 500,000 criminal offenses committed by illegal aliens in that 10-year or 12-year time period. Absolutely mind-boggling. And again, we've got to have more jail space. We've got to have more police on the streets. We've got to have more court assets, things like that, because of that burden that is put on the United States. Those 64,127 assaults, 9,246 burglary charges, 59,900 drug charges, 1,128 kidnapping cases, 25,000 theft cases, 39,000 obstructing police charges, 2,900 robbery charges, 6,400 sexual assaults, and 7,400 sexual offenses, as well as 6,193 weapons charges. So you can see here the staggering, crippling cost just to the U.S. justice system of all these illegal aliens coming in. So is this an invasion? Absolutely. If they're literally coming in and destroying our country. I've talked a lot about the fact that these migrants learn from each other because they have WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups. They learn from each other about how to game the system when they come in. So not only how to get in and where to go, but where there are programs they can sign up for. There are church programs, there are city programs, there are state programs, and there are federal programs, and there are NGOs that can all give these people money. And in IOM alone is paying out something like $18 billion a year to these migrants in order to help them get here. That's before they even get into the United States. And much of that is funded by the United States taxpayer. Okay, so this is absolutely an invasion. There's no two ways about it. So You can get those statistics by going to chuckholton.com. Look on, it's one of the top articles I put on there. It is the staggering cost of illegal immigration, right on the top page of the page on my locals page. You can also, if you haven't yet, you can subscribe and support me over there if you want to see more of this kind of reporting. My plan is to leave tomorrow afternoon and go to Austin, Texas, and then go down to Eagle Pass at the border, and I will bring you live reporting from the border starting day after tomorrow. And we will be covering the sort of clash that may take place between Texas and the federal government. Now, the federal government has given Texas until today to cease and desist and to allow Border Patrol to come in and remove the wire that they've erected along the border. Texas is saying not going to happen. Texas is, they've already been ordered by the Supreme Court of the United States to do this. However, as General Flynn points out, this is a very, very important point here. The states existed before the nation, meaning that the federal government does not supersede the rights of the states, the sovereignty of the states. That was what the Civil War was fought about. And the sovereignty of Texas is especially strong because of the Texas Constitution and because of the caveats that were put in place before Texas would agree to join the Union. Texas has not only the right, but the responsibility to respond up to and including military force if they are being invaded. And especially if the government, thank you, Sherry, if the government of the United States, the federal government, will not take action and the states are being invaded, then it is incumbent upon the states and the leadership of the states to take action to do that. Now, more than a dozen states have already sided with Texas in this. I think it's like 22 states at this point that have sided with Texas and have said Texas has the right and the responsibility to protect its own borders, specifically because the federal government is not doing it. So if the federal government refuses to safeguard its citizens and is engaging in behavior that is literally leading to the collapse of the United States, then the states themselves have a responsibility to take action, and that is what they're doing. So Texas is telling the Supreme Court to shove it. They're telling the federal government to come and take it. If you want our barbed wire, you're going to have to come and take it. Now, let's talk about what this is going to actually end up looking like. Okay. Thank you very much, Trey Ben, P. Trey Ben. That's very kind of you. I do appreciate the donations there, and we will try to make the best use we can of those for sure. And it helps keep me doing this job. That's for sure. So let's talk about what this is going to look like. Is this going to look like actual war between the Texas National Guard and the United States military? No, it's not. If anybody tells you it's going to end up being literally armed conflict between the two different militaries, then don't listen to that person anymore, because it's not. It's just not. That's not reasonable, and that's not even what the federal government is talking about. What the federal government is going to do is they're going to sue Texas. They're going to maybe sanction Texas by taking away some federal funding for things that Texas receives now. But that's a double-edged sword, because the state of Texas contributes a heck of a lot to the federal treasury. Thank you, Donna. Very kind. And so because of that, if the federal government says, well, we're going to sanction Texas, we're not going to give this money that we typically give to Texas for roads or schools or hospitals or whatever, Texas could literally say, well, fine, we're not going to give any income tax to the federal government anymore. And then you're talking about things get really skippy. Things get really interesting. But suffice it to say, this is most likely going to be resolved in the courts And the real question is, how far will the Biden administration go in the courts to try to get their way here? And how far will Texas go? Now, Michael Yon made a very good point on Twitter today, and he pointed out that a lot of this is it's theater. It's theater meant to garner votes. So this is an election year. Donald Trump is looking for votes. Joe Biden is looking for votes. The state of Texas, Governor Abbott, I believe it's an election year in Texas as well. And so they're all looking to garner votes. If Governor Abbott was really serious about stopping the flow of migration into Texas, thank you, Blake, very kind. There's a lot more he could do. He could literally shut down commerce between Texas and Mexico. He could close all of the borders between Texas and Mexico, or at least he could try to. He could, do a whole lot more as far as punishing the illegal migrants that are coming into Mexico, coming in from Mexico. But he's not. He's not doing those things. What he is doing is pretty much apparently designed to get him votes, to make him look cool, but it's not 100%. He's not going all in on stopping the illegal migration. And so it bears keeping that in mind, that Abbott, I mean, you have to applaud him when he does something like this, but you also have to point out, as Michael Yon does, that there's a whole lot more he could be doing than take them away from Abbott. And if they take him away from Greg Abbott, the governor, then they would have to do the federal government's bidding and go and take down those barriers. Now, here's the problem with that. How many of those Texas citizens who are part of the National Guard doing what they're doing right now, do you think are going to be happy about the federal government, quote unquote, federalizing them and telling them to do exactly the opposite and to do something that is literally harmful to the state where they live? So you could see a whole lot of mutiny taking place in the Texas National Guard if the federal government tried to do that. Is that likely? It's possible. It's not. I don't know how likely it is. I'm not the kind of person. Thank you, Teresa, UN Open Migration Pact. Yeah, that definitely is part of the problem. You must be a fan of Oscar Blue because he talks about that a lot. I'm going to be meeting up with Oscar on the Mexican side of the border, probably on Monday or Tuesday. Thank you, Stanley. So if you follow Oscar Blue Ramirez here on YouTube, you may see us together. And if you don't, you should, because Oscar is one of the most intrepid journalists out there covering this conflict. He's been marching with the caravan of aliens that is coming up through Mexico right now. And this is why I call this a perfect storm, because you have this caravan of illegal aliens planning to enter the United States illegally that is coming up through Mexico and should arrive this coming week. You have another caravan coming from all over the United States of truckers, bikers, and concerned citizens who are coming down to the border to put a stop to the crossings and to stand up for Texas and to stand against the federal government. And so, so got people like Hal here look at that and say, there will be war. Why do I not think there will be war? Well, because I've been doing this for a long, long time. And if you haven't noticed, there is some craziness, some shenanigans going on just about every month for the last 20 years where, oh no, this is the end. It's going to be civil war. Oh gosh, we're going to, people setting their hair on fire and running around. And you know what? It doesn't happen because cooler heads prevail. And our system works more or less as it was intended to. And we don't go to war. Civil war does not break out. Now, does that mean that civil war will never break out? No. I think it's likely that the United States will eventually end up balkanizing that is separating up into maybe 4 or 5 different countries, as the United States, basically gives up on its role as the global policeman of the rest of the world. It's likely that the United States will not be able to hold together as we get more and more divided. And so these are birth pains of the new countries that will come to be once the United States crumbles. And that won't happen without violence. That won't happen without bloodshed. There will be bloodshed when that happens. I just don't think it'll be this week. I just think that we're not quite there yet. And part of the reason is TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, even YouTube. People are just not committed enough. They're not in enough pain to actually go out and do what it takes to vote with a rifle instead of voting at the ballot box. There are a lot of people that say it's going to happen. It's about to happen. Well, it's maybe not about to happen because people are just too lazy. They're too passive, and it doesn't take everybody. We don't need everybody, but we need enough. We need 1,000 or more, probably, absolutely committed to fight to the death kind of patriots. And I'm not calling for that by any stretch. I do not want to see violence. Anybody who has spent as much time in wars as I have does not want to see war come to the United States. There's no way, no how. And so call me an optimist, call me Pollyannic, call me pie in the sky, but I don't think that this is the catalyst that will lead to civil war in the United States. I've been wrong before, but I don't think it is. And it will be interesting, however, because, again, you've got a caravan of migrants coming up from the south. You've got a caravan of patriots coming down from the north. They're going to meet. And where they meet, you have the federal government and the Texas state government already at odds with each other. So we're setting the course for a major clash here. And it'll be very interesting to be there and watch. Now, some people have been saying all over Twitter that we should not go down there. That people should not go in these convoys down to the border because the U.S. government is going to use this as an excuse for another January 6th style event and will arrest everybody and put them all in jail on charges of insurrection. Well, I don't think that's going to happen either. And there's several reasons why. First of all, it's far different to be agitating along the U.S. southern border than it is to be crashing through the doors of the U.S. Capitol building. Some people ask me in the comments here, do I think January 6th was a planned event by the U.S. federal government? I think it absolutely was. And I know because they were preparing for just that event. Now, not only did they expect something like that to happen, I think they facilitated it, and I think there's plenty of evidence to that to prove that they facilitated the people coming into the Capitol building and that sort of thing. But to see the unbelievable sentences that were passed down on people who were there, who were, peacefully demonstrating. They didn't do anything violent, but they just happened to be there. And then contrast that with the literal, nothing burger that happened to the people who were violently attacking the White House before the election during Donald Trump's reign. And we're talking about dozens and dozens of Secret Service agents being injured by big Black Lives Matter protesters. The church across from the White House set on fire. These defacing government property all over the place. And how many people were arrested? Basically none. I think that tells you everything you need to know about whether or not you can trust the U.S. government. But if there are a bunch of people that are agitating down on the U.S. southern border, and they're not being violent, Look, there's not going to be federal agents going down there and going to battle against the Texas National Guard. There's not going to be U.S. military down there fighting against the Texas National Guard. Even the Border Patrol, the guys that are rank and file in the Border Patrol agree with the Texas DPS and the Texas National Guard, and they're not going to go fight those guys. They get along, like behind the scenes. Those Border Patrol agents, by and large, get along with all the people that are working along the border in Texas. It's only the leadership that doesn't get along. And so you're not going to have two groups of federal agents versus state agents fighting each other. And so if a whole bunch of Americans go down there and protest along the border, stand along the border, as long as they're not violently assaulting somebody, I don't see how that can be called an insurrection in any way, shape, or form. And I mean, if it did, if they start trying to arrest everybody, just run across the border into Mexico. I don't think that the U.S. or that the Texas government really wants these people down there. I don't think they want the truckers and bikers and everybody to come down and cause even more chaos along the border when they have enough to deal with as it is. The other thing that hasn't been pointed out, and I haven't even seen it in the news, is that the number of people coming across the southern border, especially in Texas, has dropped precipitously. And it's dropped precipitously not necessarily because of the barbed wire, the floating barriers, all that kind of stuff. It's dropped precipitously because the Biden administration spoke to the Mexican president, Manuel Lopez Obrador, and made a deal with him to slow the migration until after the election, because Biden is getting hammered by his own people for the number of migrants that are coming across the border. And so he doesn't care if it's popular with the Republicans, but when it's not popular with the Democrats either, now Biden's got a problem. And so he's gone to the Mexican president. They've made a deal behind the scenes for Mexico to slow walk the people who are coming in up until November. And we're already seeing the effects of that. So the people are being held at the southern border of Mexico in Tapachula. They come across there. They have to get out. They have to get across the river from Guatemala into Mexico. Then they have to apply for a permit to cross Mexico. And now it's taking months for those permits. And basically Mexico has stopped giving them out. That's why this big group of migrants has come all together. They just said, you can't arrest all of us. And like 10,000 of them just blew out of Tapachula and headed north anyway. And they're right. Mexico can't arrest all of them. So they're just, they can't really stop them. But they're trying to, and they're having some success at that. Look, Mexico can stop this anytime they want. They have done it before. They did it during COVID. They did it during the Trump administration. And they could do it anytime they want. But they weaponize migrants against the United States, just like we see migrants being weaponized by Russia into Western Europe. Just like we see migrants being weaponized from North Africa into Europe. Just like we see migrants being weaponized from Morocco into Spain, into Ceuta and Melilla and those Spanish cities along the northern coast of Africa. Migrants are a powerful weapon, and many countries weaponize them against the United States. Right now, Nicaragua has changed its rules for people being able to transit through their country, specifically to allow more people to transit through there on the way to the United States. And they're doing that because Ortega, the president of Nicaragua, is a communist, and he hates the United States and is weaponizing migrants against the U.S. Okay, so Ellen, not Sarah Lee, says SCOTUS said the federal government could cut the razor wire for access if necessary. This goes further. SCOTUS will side with Texas. I think the decision that the SCOTUS made was specifically that what they said was the federal government has jurisdiction over the what they call that, the Roosevelt belt or whatever that. There's a like 100-yard sort of zone from the actual border inland inside America that the federal government has jurisdiction over, and everything else belongs to state governments. So according to the Supreme Court, the state of Texas does not have the right to restrict the federal government from its duties along the U.S. southern border, because that Roosevelt Strip, or whatever it's called, inside the fence actually belongs to the federal government. It doesn't become Texas until you get 100 yards inside from the border. And Texas is saying, well, that doesn't really work for us because 100 yards inside the border, they're already inside the country. They're well past the fence. And so we're going to stop them before they get to the fence, because once they get into the United States, we can't legally push them back into Mexico, because these people are by and large not Mexican. So if they're not Mexican, we cannot legally push them back into Mexico once they set foot on U.S. soil. And the federal government is saying, we own the first 100 yards of U.S. soil, and Texas can't do anything about that. So once they step foot on our first 100 yards, they're in the United States and we have to keep them. And Texas is going, that doesn't work for us. So they're pushing on that, and they're saying, because the federal government is abdicating its responsibility to safeguard our country from invasion, then we, Texas, will take control and we will do it ourselves. And until until the federal government decides to actually, do its job and protect the American people from this invasion, then the state of Texas is going to do it wherever they're coming into Texas. Now, again, this is sort of theater, because right now they can't get in. They put this barbed wire up in that park in Eagle Pass, Texas. But if they go half a mile south, there's no fence and they can just walk right in. If they go half a mile north, there's no fence. They can just walk right in. If they don't want to come in, if Texas makes it too difficult, they'll just go to Arizona. They'll just go to California. They'll go to New Mexico and come right in. Because, and Texas doesn't have any control over that. New Mexico has a Democrat governor that's terrible. And so she's not going to do anything about it. So they're welcome to come in through New Mexico. They're welcome to come in through Arizona. And they're welcome to come in through California. So what's the problem here? I mean, if the United States federal government really had a problem and really wanted these people to come in the United States, then they don't have to do anything with Texas. They can just leave Texas alone. And the cartels on the other side will just rearrange their routes and send them up through Arizona, send them up through California. And they are coming up through those places. Can Texas make a demilitarized zone? Well, no, that's not Denise, a demilitarized zone is exactly what it says. It's a zone where there can be no military. And Texas doesn't have any reason to create a zone where there can be no military, because the United States is not sending military down there. The Texas National Guard wants to be there. They want them there. So they're not going to create a zone where they can't go. A demilitarized zone is where no military can be, right? So Texas is also expanding its fence, I understand, going further south and further north from Eagle Pass. But they're still, I mean, you're talking about, 1,200 miles of fence, of border in Texas alone. And there's so much of it that doesn't have any fencing yet. And so it's going to be a long time before Texas can actually secure their own borders. But right now they're just going after the places that are the worst hot spots for migrants. And all that's going to do is just push those migrants to go to other places and create new hot spots. And then Texas will deal with those, and then they'll create new hot spots, and they'll deal with those, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I'm looking for some. I saw a lot of questions going by while I was talking. Supreme Court bought and paid for? I don't think so, Mark. Bought by whom? I don't get it when people say, a bunch of unelected judges can't make it. Well, you only say that when they make decisions that you don't like. You don't say that when they make decisions you do like. And that's kind of the point of the Supreme Court, is that they're not elected. And so they can keep America from descending into the tyranny of the majority through, if everybody was elected, then we couldn't do that. But the people in the Supreme Court, in some sense, are elected because they have to be confirmed by our elected representatives. So if you don't like who's in the Supreme Court, change your elected representatives. And that's the right way to do that, all right? Thank you for hitting the like button. Please do that. I appreciate all of the comments, likes, subscriptions, people donating. Johnny Rollins asks, do I think there will be some bad actors hired to disrupt an Eagle Pass like there was on January 6th? I think that is very, very possible. Maybe not even hired, but there are Antifa groups who make it their business to become agents provocateurs and go to conservative protests and try to whip up violence to make conservatives look bad. This is well known. And so could there be agents provocateurs in the crowd? Absolutely. And I'll be looking for those when I'm there. There are state troopers from Florida in Eagle Pass. They took up a whole Holiday Inn. Yeah, that's great. Volunteers. So in order to thwart a possible takeover of the Texas State Guard or National Guard by the federal government, yesterday the state of Texas put out a call for volunteers to come and stand in the gap at the U.S. border. Now, before you jump in your car and head to Texas, they're not talking about you. They're talking about a very specific, very small group of people who belong to the Texas, I think it's military department. And basically it's a militia. It's a Texas militia. It's a bunch of fat guys that like to play airsoft, basically. They do virtually nothing in the way of training. They do virtually nothing in the way of being vetted or anything like that. But they are a backup to the backup to the backup to the backup for Texas in case of a actual invasion by like China or something. And this is the bottom of the barrel when it comes to military people. This is not U.S. military. This is not National Guard. This is not the reserves. This is a militia that gets together and plays paintball sometimes. And they're asking those people who are already signed up as members of the Texas Department of the Military to come and take their place in the gap at the wall and try to help stop. Now, they won't be able to arrest people. They won't be able to, there's a whole lot they won't be able to do, but Texas is just looking for bodies. Now, that call caused a lot of confusion, and a lot of people jumped in their cars and said, we're going to convoy down to Texas, and we're going to, they're calling for volunteers. But they didn't understand that Texas is not calling for volunteers from around the country. They're calling for volunteers specifically from that state guard, which I think is only like 1,400 people total. It's not very many people. So before you go, heading for Texas, keep that in mind. They're not asking for you to come. But there are a lot of people who are coming, and one wonders what they will do when they get there. They'll probably block the roads, cause a lot of traffic jams, maybe go down to the fence and hold signs and yell and holler. But they're not going to be tackling illegal aliens as they're coming across the fence. They're not going to do that. That's not going to happen. Now, the U.S. federal government, the Biden administration, would love nothing more than for these guys to go down there and start tackling migrants on camera. You tackle these illegal aliens, and throw them back into the river. That would be the best the best election campaign ad that Joe Biden could ever hope for. Would be to see a bunch of yahoos assaulting these families of aliens coming across the border. Now, many of the people coming across the border are not families. They are military-age males. But again, you go down there and you get caught on camera even yelling at these people, saying mean things to them. And that's all the Democrats need to make their wonderful campaign ads and whip up the hatred of Donald Trump even more. And so if you want to have another 4 years of Joe Biden, go ahead. Go down there and start tackling migrants. But I would not recommend it, okay? Have I heard anything on how the cartels are taking this? Well, the cartels love it when there are things like this happening along in certain places along the border, because that means that there is not a lot of attention at other places along the border. And so they just start moving the drugs, which is far more profitable than the people. They start moving the drugs in greater numbers through in other places where the Border Patrol isn't. Look, the cartels have a lot of intel inside the United States. They have scouts on mountaintops all across the southern border that are watching, that are they have radios, and they radio in, oh, there's a Border Patrol guy coming, look out. And so they have tremendous intel capabilities. They fly drones across into the United States and watch and keep track of where all the action is. And that is exactly where the drugs are not going to be. The drugs, the fentanyl and everything is going to come across. Even still, the Border Patrol was able to capture, not migrants, but drug runners, carrying enough fentanyl last year to kill 6 billion people. Now get that. They brought enough fentanyl into the United States to kill everyone on the planet a couple times over. Why do I say that? Because you say, wait a minute, there's more than 6 billion people on the planet. Yeah, that's what the Border Patrol caught. That's what the Border Patrol captured coming across, was enough to kill 6 billion people. But we also know that 100,000 people died of fentanyl overdoses in the United States. And so obviously a lot more fentanyl than that came into the country. Thank you, Rochelle. Very kind of you. I appreciate your donations. Thank you so much. So let's see here. The truck convoy is actually supposed to, the truck convoy is going to 3 different places from what I've seen. And one of them is Eagle Pass, one of them is up near El Paso, and I forget where the other one is. My first American people need help, not illegals, not illegals, not illegals. Okay, Navajo in Christ. Yes, he reported that. How sick. Okay. Can Native Americans protect their lands from this? Well, that's a good question, Denise. I have done a lot of reporting on the Tohono O'odham Indian Reservation, which is down near Tucson. And far from stopping the migrants coming across, the Tohono O'odham often work with the cartels to get drugs across into the United States because it's highly lucrative. They make a lot of money doing it. And so it's easy to dangle, of course, the per capita annual income on the Indian reservations across the United States is lower than the rest of America. And so there's a lot of poor people there, a lot of addiction, things like that, a lot of vice. And so it's not difficult for the cartels to come in and dangle a few dollar bills in front of people and get them to, look the other way and allow that stuff to come through their reservations. Tacos need no ID for a plane ride. Well, I love tacos. I'm going to eat a lot of tacos when I get to, because they would require a visa. They can't get a visa. Ecuador and in some cases Brazil are the two countries in the Western Hemisphere that don't require a visa for anybody. Anybody can come into Ecuador without a visa. And so people who would normally need a visa to get to Mexico or get to the United States or whatever, they can come to Ecuador, but they have to walk through the Darien Gap. So that's why they do that. Thank you for all your hard work. That's great. Thank you, One Tired Mom. I really appreciate you too, and I appreciate that I see you on all of the stuff I do, and so you're a super fan without a doubt, and I really appreciate that. My wife and I have been talking about you and wondering, are you a mama or a grandmama? I got the sense that you were a grandmother, but maybe you're not. If you're still a tired mama, then you probably still have kids at home. But I'd like to know more about you because you are such a fixture on my lives, and I appreciate that very much. Has a group of Chinese made it here yet? Sophia says. There have been Chinese coming in for 2 years, and there are more coming right now. The numbers of Chinese that are coming through the Darien Gap is skyrocketing, up to about 1,000 a day. And the majority of those are military-age males. When I was in the Darien Gap last week, I saw a lot of those Chinese people, and they were just coming out of the jungle and had stripped off all their clothes down to their underwear and were wandering around, going to the shower and stuff like that. I wondered the Indians don't care. The Indians don't wear any clothes practically, so they probably didn't care. But I'm sure there was a whole bunch of people from like Afghanistan and other Muslim countries that were coming through as well, and it had to be quite a shock to the women, especially coming from Afghanistan, to see a bunch of men running around in their skivvies. And, well, you pay your money and take your chances. I was also surprised that the Afghan women that I met were not wearing burqas, that as soon as they got out of Afghanistan, they ripped those suckers off and threw them away and were going around with their hair uncovered, which I thought was pretty cool to see. So the Chinese are coming through. There are many of them that are already in the United States. I mean, tens of thousands of them already in the United States, tens of thousands more that are on their way. And so One Tired Mama is young, somebody says. That's great. Panama, let's go. I'm in Panama. I used to only carry one gun. Now I carry a long gun and a handgun and a switchblade. This is the thing, straitjacket, that I notice when I go back to the United States. I used to feel just fine going most anywhere in the United States without carrying a gun. But there are very few places that I would go anymore in the United States without being armed. And it's sad that I feel like it's changed that much. Samuel Price Carson from North Carolina signed the Texas Declaration of Independence. His best friend, Davy Crockett, died at the Battle of the Alamo. Thank you, Ellen. Yes, I have been to the Alamo, and if you read the story about that, it's pretty amazing what they did there. The Iron Maiden, that's my wife, the Iron Maiden. Why won't they let anyone go into Gaza to report? Well, they are letting some people into Gaza to report. They're just not letting me in, and I'm not sure why, because I, for the most part, get along with everybody from the IDF. But they keep saying, you're on the list, you're on the list. Finally, I think they probably took me off the list because I told them, look, you guys are losing the information war, and I can help you win it, and you don't care, so I'm leaving. And when you guys want to start winning the information war, get back to me. And I think maybe they didn't like my tone there. Look for Alejandro Mayorkas and Kamala Harris to come stand in the gap too. Yeah, that's not going to happen. They are not going to be seen down there. I promise you that. Navajo tacos in Arizona. I'd like to try those. That sounds good. Let's see what else here. My great granduncle Samuel Price Carson. He's definitely rolling in his grave at the moment. Yes, for sure, Ellen. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. How do you keep your goatee looking outstanding? I shave it. I mean, with like normal people, I get a haircut now and then. Wow, Chuck has a tone. I don't have a gun. I wear the armor of God. Okay, that's good. Question, could UN make Palestinian state like they did Israel? Not really. It wasn't so much the UN that did that. I mean, it did and it didn't. But anyway, what are your thoughts about civil war? I mentioned that at the beginning. I don't think that this is going to be the catalyst that starts a civil war. I think that a civil war may come someday, and we should prepare accordingly. But right now, I think most of America is far too passive, far too distracted. TikTok and Facebook and everything like that tends to make men weak. And so there are far too many weak men in America and not enough strong men that would be willing to literally lay their lives on the line, because that's what you'd be doing, right? If you were to go out and say, we're gonna go kinetic against the U.S. federal government, you're probably going to die. And you'd have to get enough people together that would be willing to die to actually make that happen. And I don't see that happening anytime soon. Just going to try one more time. Are you going to the Texas border? Tamara, yes, I am going to the Texas border. Tomorrow afternoon, I will be flying to Austin and then driving down to Eagle Pass. So I'll be down there for about a week. And I'll be doing podcasts live from the border to show you what's going on down there. So stay tuned. Appreciate that comment. I say these things, I answer these things, but the average amount of time that people are on the podcast is like, 9 minutes or something. So 10 minutes later, it's a whole new group of people almost. And so they don't have any idea what I was saying at the beginning. So I have to kind of repeat myself. And so to repeat myself, we have a perfect storm of craziness that's about to happen on the U.S. southern border. That's why I put off my trip to either Ecuador or Guyana, because we have a caravan of migrants and aliens coming up from the south. We have a caravan of patriots coming down from the north. We have Texas Border Patrol. We have Texas National Guard blocking the Border Patrol from the federal government, and the federal government saying, or else, you're going to stop it or else. And so it's going to be interesting. Let's say that for sure. It's going to be interesting. Were there actually UN employees that participated in October 7th massacre? Yes, there were. Northwest Fishing, apparently, and even the UN, the UNRWA admits it, because they fired a bunch of their people who were actually not just cheering on October 7th, which is almost everybody in UNRWA, but actually taking part in it and murdering Israelis. So there were employees of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency murdering Israelis on October 7th. And UNRWA admitted it and is doing an investigation and has fired a bunch of people because of it. What are your thoughts on sale of F-16s to Turkey that Biden just announced? I think it's a big mistake to sell any U.S. hardware of any kind to Turkey. And I think if I was president, what I would do is I would ban any U.S. troop from having any contact whatsoever with any military person from Turkey. You can't talk to them, you can't train them, you can't give them advice, you can't look at them, nothing. You can't pay. We will completely ignore Turkey, and that would essentially remove them from the NATO, from being a part of NATO, because they're not part of NATO. They're trying to be all things to all jihadis at this point, and Turkey is not our friend. What would you do in Arizona? Can anything be done? Arizona's got a whole lot of border fence and a whole lot of border that's not fenced. I know most of the ranchers along the border in Arizona, and I have gone down and stayed with them in their homes. I've been reporting on the border crisis since 2005, maybe 2007 maybe. So I've been, reporting on this for a long time. I've gotten to know those guys very well, and they are absolutely sick by what's happening. But there are not a ton of migrants coming across the border in Arizona. Most of what's coming across the border is drugs. And when I was there last August, maybe June. Last June, I was down on the Arizona border, and we stayed with one of the ranchers for a few days. We went out for a couple of hikes, and both times we went hiking, we saw trains of drug runners coming across, walking across this guy's ranch. He's got 55,000 acres down there, so it's a lot of land. And he said, if you see those guys, don't look at them, don't pay attention to them, because they'll kill you. So we saw them coming up the ridge line, and we turned and went the other way. What would you do? Okay, so let's see here. What is the answer for the Kurds? How is it they're caught in the middle of the hostilities? If Trump is elected, will he help the Kurds? Probably he will not help the Kurds, Traben. In the first Trump presidency, Donald Trump really threw the Kurds under the bus in northern Syria. The Kurds are paying the price for guarding more than 10,000 ISIS fighters in prisons in northern Syria. And the United States was there to sort of keep a lid on things and to keep the Turks from attacking the Kurds, because Turkey and Kurdistan don't get along very well. And so just having troops there, we weren't really doing anything. We were just there. But it had a dilutive effect on the controversy and the clashes between Turkey and the Kurds. But Donald Trump pulled the U.S. troops out of there. And now the only U.S. troops that are in Syria are down in Deir ez-Zor and at Green Village. And that is not helping the Kurds very much at all. And so the prisons in places like Tal Tamr are having people escape from those prisons all the time. And so unfortunately, I don't trust Donald Trump to help the Kurds, who are our only real friend in the region. I mean, they're just it's unfortunate, but that's the case. Let's see. Yeah, they just get fired. They should stand them up against the wall and shoot them. If Texas secedes, other southern states will follow. Probably. I don't think it's likely Texas will secede. There's been talk about Texas seceding for 40 years. Whenever Texas gets, anything happens in the United States that Texas doesn't like, people in Texas talk about secession, but in reality, that's a whole lot more difficult to do than it is to say. Okay? Let's see. Question: do you think that the weapons that we had left in Afghanistan are being used to fight against Israel? Not many, if any at all. Not many. Shalom Shah. The majority of the weapons that they're capturing inside Gaza are not U.S. weapons. They are Soviet bloc weapons. There have been some U.S. weapons found. They tend to like to use U.S. weapons whenever they are, saying Allah Akbar, and they're making their propaganda videos and things like that. But there are not that many of them, really. Let's see. Somebody gave $99. Thank you, Glenn. That's very nice of you. I certainly appreciate that. So Jacob says, can Texas leave the U.S.? I'm told that the Texas Constitution states that they retain the right to secede from the Union, that they're one of the only states that has that right, that when they signed on to the Union, they kept that right out for themselves. But I still don't think it's likely that they would actually exercise it. So if they can, I don't think they will. Let's see here. I bet they are, maybe blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Kurds are mostly Muslim. Yeah, Kurds are mostly Muslim, mostly Sunni, but they're very progressive, modern Muslims. Are they getting closer to catching Yahya Sinwar? I think they are getting closer every day, but he has apparently surrounded himself with Israeli hostages. And so if they kill him, they're going to kill all the Israeli hostages, a bunch of them. And I think they know that. And that's why I've talked about on previous lives the fact that Israel can probably get some of its hostages back or destroy Hamas, but they probably can't do both. And so they're probably going to opt for destroying Hamas. Too bad Hawaii can't secede. Can't succeed or secede. You're probably dictating. Hit that like button. Yes. Thank you very much. please do hit the like button. It helps a lot. Question, why are the migrants passing up beautiful places on the equator and U.S. citizens moving to these places? Right, I moved to Panama, and you have people coming from down here and moving up there. Well, the reason is social welfare. They are moving to the United States for a better paycheck. Point, period, end of story. That's it. You would be very hard pressed to find anybody coming through into the United States illegally who is not coming specifically for a better job, more money. Because anything else they could find somewhere else that's cheaper and not as far away. So there it is. Kurds are good people. Yes, they are. They're very good people. I like the Kurds a lot. Can I register for a trip with you? Okay, so let's talk about the trips that I've got coming up. I think we're this close to being sold out completely on the May and June trips to Armenia. We may have 1 or 2 slots left. Hopefully Connie can put the links up to those in the chat here. The September trip to Armenia is completely sold out. And the trip to Israel is sold out, but we're taking, we are expecting some people to cancel because that just is always how it works. You know, you get 20 people sign up and 5 of them will end up canceling for whatever reason. Maybe when they see the plane fares or whatever. But so we're overbooking somewhat on the trip to Israel. So I think we have maybe 2 slots left to Israel. If you want to join us in Israel, you got very little time left to do it. Jessica Guevara gave up. I'm not sure what she gave up. Were you asking a question that I missed? Oh, Chuck, please see my questions on migrants and taxes. Okay, can you ask your question again? Because I'm looking, will Dave Eubank be leaving Syria if U.S. pulls out? Dave Eubank is not in Syria at the moment. He's in Burma, and I'll be joining him in Burma in mid-February, most likely. Jessica, good question. Go pitch a tent, like financial collapse in U.S. due to supporting too many migrants. Very, very likely. Very likely. Jessica, I'm looking for your question here. Oh, Jessica Moore, it wasn't, will you be doing any stories regarding the mass visions and conversions CBN reported happening amongst Palestinians? We have done some reporting on that. I don't have any planned in the future, but yes, we have done that. That can't be the question Jessica was on about. Okay, well, I scrolled up as far as I could. Thank you, MM, very kind. What's the youngest that could come? 16-year-olds? Yes, absolutely. We'll take 16-year-olds. Thank you, Jan Berg. 16-year-olds is just fine on our trips. We've had younger people than that come. We've had people bring kids before. But a 16-year-old is an adult as far as I'm concerned. We do have one trip to Armenia that's still got some space open, and that's our backpacking trip. It's not all off-grid. We're not going to be backpacking for 10 days, but we're going to do a couple of short camping and backpacking trips, some on trail, some off trail, to introduce you to the wilderness in Armenia that is absolutely stunning. Places that you just can't see from the road. And my son's going to be leading that up. I'm not positive if I will be on the trip or not, but I hope to be. We'll see. It's concurrent with our May trip to our actual tour to Armenia, so you could theoretically go on the tour and then actually stay on for another 10 days and do some more camping and hiking and stuff. But it's a completely guided private trekking trip. So all your food is provided. You just have to bring your camping gear, your tent and your sleeping bag and stuff like that, and a good pair of boots. And you're going to get to see some amazing stuff. The price is reasonable, and it would be a wonderful graduation present for your high school senior, your college graduate, anybody that your grandkids or somebody like that wants to go. So hopefully Connie can put the link up to that one as well. Okay, Stacy Jeffrey says there was a video surfaced of Hispanics crossing with a ladder over wall, then climbing back over into Mexico. Any idea on what they could have been doing? They had cushions on their feet. Well, if they have cushions on their feet, then they're drug smugglers, and they're probably just um, preparing a route for future, you know, incursion by those drug smugglers. That's most likely what they're doing. They don't come. Migrants don't come in with carpet on their feet. It's only the drug runners that do that. Uh, so the youngest that could come, I don't know, like 14. How young do you feel comfortable sending your kid? Okay, or to the sleep. Chuck, they're calling this an invasion. When I think invasion, it's military annexing land by force. What category could this situation fall in? Okay, I answered that one at the beginning too. And so you're saying they're annexing land by force. Well, what do you call it when when there are 3 million people flooding into the United States and using up our medical care, our education facilities? They're using up our law enforcement resources, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What do you call that? Okay, so they're not bringing guns, but it doesn't necessarily have to have guns for it to be an invasion. How physically fit do you have to be to go on the backpacking trip? Well, Tracy, you don't, you need to be able to walk 10 miles, maybe. You're not going to do that much in a day. I think the most that they'll do in a day is probably, 6 miles or something. But with a pack on, you're going to need to be able to walk some distance. So don't come if you're in a wheelchair. Don't come if you have a walker. And you may want to train yourself up for this thing by getting a pack on and lacing your boots up and getting out there and walking a few miles every day. But we can manage. We will make it okay for you, even if you go, man, I just can't make it up this hill. Okay, fine. We'll work it out so that you can go back and stay at the hotel and wait till we get back or something like that. So, I'm not saying you have to be Adonis or a triathlete or anything to come on the backpacking trip. It's just, you're going to want to be able to sleep on the ground and walk for a few miles outdoors with a pack on. All right. Radio and stations in San Diego bragging about people crossing 4 times in 1 month and getting 2,000 every time. Yeah, I've heard about that as well. I don't know if that exact thing is true, but what I can tell you is these people game the system. They learn how to game the system. They're much better at it than you and me, and they will do whatever they can to game the system. And so that's why we need to tighten up the system. I don't think 14 is too young. We've had on the last trip, we had a couple of 14-year-olds that came along, and we took good care of them. They're with a group, so it's not like they're on their own. We're not throwing them in a taxi and sending one off by themselves or anything. They're going to be together with the group the whole time. So as long as you're okay getting them there, shoot, when my son was 15 years old, he flew to Africa by himself and spent the whole summer there. So maybe I'm not the guy to ask that question. Let's see. Shoot, it keeps jumping up. I say, oh, there's a question that it jumps past. I miss it. Can I register myself and my brother? Is it okay to bring family? It is okay to bring family. Yes, you can register. Hopefully, you can put the. I'm sorry. Hopefully, my wife will put the link in the chat here, and you can click on that link and go there. If not, we'll have to put it. Just send me an email. If you can't find the link, send me an email at hotzoneholton@gmail.com. Hotzoneholton, Holton, @gmail.com, and I will send you the link, okay? Are you getting any rest between gigs these days? Yeah, I am. I'm here working at my desk for a few days in between gigs, and there's a lot going on, but I don't think you're going to have a 60-pound pack, Hollow Man. Maybe a 25-pound, 30-pound pack. If you have a 60-pound pack, you're doing something wrong. I can travel halfway across the world for a month with less than 60 pounds. A lot of my pals and such are getting very conspiracy-minded and send me stuff. What can I do? Is it like put a boundary in? I'm not sure what the question is there, Isabel. I'm sorry. Can you restate your question? Okay. Are you getting any? Okay, so I got that one. I'm trying to scroll very slowly so I don't miss some. Um, thanks for reading my comment. What day is it? Okay. When and where should we protest, or is it just another streamer making money off the border invasion? Well, you want to go protest. Uh, if you're willing, and it depends on what you're willing to do. Are you willing to go down to the border and protest? You're going to get more airtime that way. You know, the media will pay more attention to you if you're protesting down on the border. But if you feel like protesting, I'd say go protest wherever you are. I don't know that that makes any difference. I think you could do every bit as much difference by just contacting all your Congress critters and letting them know that you're not going to vote for them if they don't do something about this, than you could by going and standing out in the road someplace. You know what I mean? Okay, so no vaccines. Yeah, you don't need vaccines to travel anymore anywhere. I don't know of any place on planet Earth that requires a COVID vaccine anymore. What kind of tea does Connie make for you? Whatever she has, and I drink it. No, just another streamer. Come on, son. Love Jesus and hit likes. Okay. I'm just good at my wife is answering questions now. Now I'm in trouble. How do you get around from one place to another so quickly? Do you have your own plane? I wish. No, I'm going to have to make a whole lot more money than I do if I'm ever going to get my own plane. But no, I just fly commercial. And I spend a lot of time on airplanes. And that's the worst part of my job. But it's actually where I would get the most rest because nobody can call me. So when I'm on airplanes, I sleep all the time. As soon as that plane goes like this, and I go, I'm out. I go to sleep. I sleep very well on airplanes. Huge group of Houthi fighters in Yemen headed to the border. I have not seen anything about Houthi Yemeni fighters coming to the U.S. southern border. That would be interesting. What's going on before you go protest? Yeah, make sure you know what's going on. Right. Trying to arrange to join Dave in Burma. Hope to see you there. Going to Belize tomorrow to coordinate Afghans. Green Beret Networking Task Group. Great. Come to Burma. I'd love to see you guys there. That's great. Okay. Let's see. We hear about the problem at the border, but what's the solution? The solution is we will tax remittances at 60% and use that money to help secure the border. We will, if you come into the United States illegally, you cannot take advantage of any programs whatsoever. No charitable programs, no state programs, no federal programs. We're going to make it illegal for anybody to give you assistance. So if you come into the United States, you better have somebody that can support you that's already here. Then we go to Mexico and say, we are completely shutting trade between the United States and Mexico until you put a stop to the people coming across our border. And Mexico will do that. We know that that will work because that's what Donald Trump did under Title 42 and just around that era. Donald Trump reduced the migration across the southern border to a trickle by making it Mexico's problem. And then Mexico makes it Guatemala's problem. Then Guatemala makes it Honduras's problem, and so on and so forth. And pretty soon, you don't have this problem anymore. All right? We could go to Panama. The United States government could go to Panama and say, we will build camps in the Darien Gap for you, and we will fund them. And as long as you will declare that anybody who comes into Panama illegally through the Darien Gap must live in Panama in these camps, in the jungle, these miserable places, for at least a year. And if you bring a kid with you, you're going to jail because that's abuse. If we did that, then the people coming through the Darien Gap would stop. Point, period, end story. Stop. Okay. Why hasn't anyone told the illegals the truth? I do. You can see on my podcast that I did from the Darien Gap. I was telling these people, look, don't go. It's expensive. It's dangerous. You shouldn't go. It's a bad idea. You'd be better off living in Guatemala. Go there instead. But I'm only one person. Okay. Question. When Trump becomes president, how will he be able to remove the migrants and illegal immigrants? I don't think he will. Vinny, in the event that Donald Trump gets another term as president, I think that the Biden administration is currently putting programs and procedures and people in place to thwart anything Donald Trump wants to do, to make it virtually impossible for him to do that. One of the reasons why they're letting in as many migrants as they can right now is that it would make it impossible for Trump to deport 30 million people. Just can't do it. So is Trump the solution? Trump's not the long-term solution. The long-term solution is we get some people in there that really are willing to go hard on this topic. Let's have America fund something else. Well, now wait a minute. Now, Carla Joe, let me explain. I understand. Carla Joe is saying, let's not have America fund camps in the Darien Gap. But if America funded the camps in the Darien Gap, it would save us so many billions of dollars because, as I said, it takes literally hundreds of billions of dollars of U.S. taxpayer money to pay for these migrants once they get into the United States. If we were to pay Panama to keep them instead of sending them to the United States, it would cost us maybe $20 million a year. So we pay $20 million a year to save $180 million a year. I'm sorry, $180 billion a year. That seems like a pretty good trade to me. That's why I said that. I mean, I'm not fond of the United States paying for stuff either, but if we can spend a little bit of money over here to keep from spending a lot of money over there, that makes sense. It's just good business. Do you think Yahya Sinwar is still in Gaza? Yes, I do. What can be the solution to all the people that are coming to the sanctuary states? For example, maybe send them in the military or factory work or work in agriculture. Well, think about that for a minute. Or do you see, would you want a bunch of like Yemenis or people from Syria or Afghanistan or Congo to be soldiers in the U.S. military? I mean, think that through. I don't think I would want those guys to be, just take people from all over the world and make them essentially mercenaries for the United States. I wouldn't trust those guys with that much power. We can put them to work in factories or in agriculture, but there are lots of people that are coming legally that are trying to get those jobs. And all that does, but putting illegals to work just drives down wages and makes it harder for people to do it the right way. 6.8 million plus food, transportation, illegal assistance per day. Okay, let's see. Is Congress and Senate do their job? Yeah, that's really the solution, but good luck with that, huh? Even the CIA has nameless stars on the wall, so don't be naive about 30 million. Have you thought about running for president? Well, there's not enough, I've always said, there's not enough Secret Service to protect me from my wife if I were to run for office. So no, I'm not running for office. Then Free Burma Rangers documentary, that work is amazing. So you guys went, Maria, you went and watched our movie. Yeah, I've been working with Free Burma Rangers for 14 years now. And yes, the work that they do is amazing for sure. And I'm proud to say that I'm one of them. Here in Minnesota, Metro Transit has already asked for drivers to pick up immigrants from some other location to bring them here to the Twin Cities. Isn't that great? Thank you very much. Your tax dollars at work. All right, so we are over time, so we're going to go. But I really appreciate all of you. Thank you very much. If you didn't hit that like button, please go do it. Hit that like button really helps. And if you haven't subscribed, why not? Go subscribe to our podcast. You can go over to chuckholton.com. That'll take you to my locals page, and you can subscribe there as well and get access to content only you can access that's specifically for paying supporters, people that just want to support me on a monthly basis to help me keep doing the work that I do. Traveling around the world is not cheap, even when I get other people to pay for it. And so I appreciate every bit of the support that we receive. or impossible. You mentioned all these guys, but failed to mention anything about Ukrainian illegals. Well, the Ukrainians who came in, there are some that came in illegally across the U.S. southern border. There have been some, but the majority of Ukrainians who came to the United States came legally because they were given temporary protected status by the Biden administration. Now, you can agree or disagree with whether or not we should have done that, but there are two things that make these people coming from Ukraine different from the people that are coming from Africa, let's say, or one of those other countries like Afghanistan. Number one, Ukrainians want to go back home. I've met some of the migrants here in the United States that have come from Ukraine, and all of them say, I can't wait to get back home. I want to go back to my country. Number two, when they come here, they get gainfully employed and start making money, paying taxes, and they typically do not become wards of the state like the people coming from Africa, Cuba, Venezuela, places like that. They are much more ambitious than the majority of the migrants coming across the southern border illegally. So if there are Ukrainians coming across illegally, they shouldn't be doing that, meaning jumping the fence. But there really wasn't much of a need for them to do that at the beginning of the war in Ukraine because the United States was allowing them to fly here directly and to claim asylum for a temporary amount of time. Thank you, Maria. Very kind of you. Thank you for the $9. So, yeah, I get it. I mean, people are like, oh, what about these Ukrainians? Well, the Ukrainians they're a little different when it comes to migrating. Most of them are not coming here to stay forever. They just want their country to win. Personally, I think that the United States should not have agreed to take any Ukrainian men whatsoever because it was illegal for Ukrainian men to leave Ukraine. And it still is, I believe. And so they didn't want military-age males dodging the draft in Ukraine by leaving. And the United States actually helped that process take place because these guys would flee into Poland or something and then get on a plane and come to the United States claiming asylum. I don't think we should have allowed that at all. And, I think that you could certainly argue a case for not taking any Ukrainians whatsoever, telling them stay in their country and fight for your country. And I don't know that it's up to us to allow them to come in. I think you're underestimating American people. Many have had enough. Well, I hope I don't get proven wrong and we have 5,000 Americans show up with their rifles and start shooting Border Patrol agents or anything like that. But if, like I say, if that happens, you are playing right into the hands of the Democrats. If there was some sort of a violent uprising by the patriots going down there to the border, that is the commercial for Joe Biden to become president for another 4 years. So let's hope that doesn't happen. All right. Okay, that's all we got, folks. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate all of you coming on. And we'll be on again, probably not tomorrow because I'll be flying, but we'll probably be on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, every day while I'm in Texas along the border. So stay tuned. All right.